everyone, my name is Sienna. So by a show of hands, how many of you guys have ever felt angry? Yes, me too. So this feeling is often associated with other feelings such as stress, anger, and even agitation. I set out to explore this familiar feeling by studying a species very closely related to us, and that is the tufted capuchin. The tufted capuchin diverged from the human lineage only 90 million years ago. They are commonly found in Northern and South American countries such as Brazil, Ecuador, and Colombia. They spend most of their time feeding, and their social structures are usually formed through competition and interactions that determine how they are ranked in a social hierarchy. So down here I have the names of the capuchins I specifically studied this summer, and there are 3 males and 3 females, and their ages range about like 30 years of age. And then over here I have a picture of what they are fed, what a standard diet was for a evening feeding. So it usually consisted of like lettuce, squash, and mix of vegetables and fruits, and combined with sauce with spices. So when I arrived to the zoo the first couple of days, I spoke to a lot of trainers, and they informed me about the assumed dominant hierarchy that exists within this troop. So at the top is Flash, followed by Sunny. Flash is the most dominant male, and Sunny is the most dominant female, followed by Mango, Kelvin, Skills, and Elvis. So if you look to the right, here's a couple of pictures of Flash on the top and Sunny on the bottom, and I'll show you guys a couple of videos of their frequent behaviors I've noticed that I just want you guys to keep in mind as I go through my presentation. So let me pull that up really fast. So this picture here, or this video, is of Flash. So at first you might think this behavior is cute, but in reality he's actually threatening you. And the trainers told me that this is a behavior of threatening behavior, and he normally does this to other capuchins in the troop, or to me a lot of times. It's kind of cute. He thinks he's scary, but it's actually cute. So in this video, it's a little conflict behavior between Mango, who's on the bottom, and Calvin, who will be shown. That's Calvin up there. So this is a frequent behavior of conflict behavior. It happens in various ways, but this is one of the ways that was most often seen. And then this is just how they would be fed. There was 2 different feeding ways they'd be, 2 types of ways they'd be fed, and this is one of the ways, by being directly fed by a trainer. So for my research, I set out to explore 2 main questions. The first question I wanted to ask is to see if there is a change in behavior for this troop during food conditions and during the absence of food. So for the first question, I hypothesized that competition would occur for food during food conditions, and including things such as conflict behavior and other agonistic interactions such as threatening, and like the eyebrow raise that you guys saw Flash do earlier. And the second thing I wanted to focus on was is there a relationship between these behaviors shown and the dominance rate that was assumed by the trainers and told to me. And so I predicted that the top ranking capuchins, such as Flash and Sunny, would exhibit more conflict behavior in comparison to the capuchins more towards the bottom. So a couple things I just want to go over that I read through my literature review are these main concepts. Some of these are familiar to you guys probably, but I just want to explain them in the context of my research. So conflict behavior, as I mentioned before, has been known to be a notion of aggression generally used for negotiation and competition. And then foraging is basically an ingestive strategy that primates and a lot of animals use to obtain food. And then dominance ranking refers to the structure of a lot of animals in a social group. So for my research methods, I started off by my initial observation started with interviews with the trainers and an ad libitum technique as mentioned by previous animal researchers. And so basically what that means is I just observe everything the animals do, and I know what I think is prominent in their troop and see which things I can use further for my actual data collection. So after collecting those behaviors, I began my on-site observations, which I used an instantaneous focal sampling technique, which basically also just means I would focus on one subject at a time, and I would, for pre-selected time periods, so each monkey was 10 minutes long, that I would focus on them for during non-food conditions, which would happen before food conditions. So leading up to food conditions, I would do observations of all the 6 capuchins, and then during food conditions, I would do the same thing for those other 6. And then off-site observations is basically what I would do on-site, except I would watch videos that I had recorded, and then I would do the same data collection, which all went on a timesheet. Sorry, I'm a little blank. Okay, and then for the data analysis, I use a GraphPad Prism software, the software GraphPad Prism 7, and Microsoft Excel to organize and run my tests, including unpaired t-test, Mann-Whitney test, and ANOVA followed by Dennis multiple comparison tests. So here's just a very simplified version of my ether that I use, and I would like to pull your attention to 3 main behaviors that will be relevant for the future slides, which are ingestion, conflict, and self-reward. Ingestion and conflict we've already sort of reviewed, so I just want to show you guys self-reward. So self-reward among the capuchins is, to us, it might be more common to know it as self-care. So self-care among the capuchins would be described as playing with a toy, a box, an acorn, scratching or itching themselves. And then, so I use these behaviors to code for my data collection. So what I found is that during food conditions, the frequency of ingestion behavior, as expected, was statistically more significant than ingestion behavior during non-food, which is expected because during food they presented with food. And then during for the frequency of conflict behavior, food condition was more statistically significant than non-food, which agreed with my hypothesis. And then one thing I had not really thought that would be relevant here is that self-rewarding was also significant, but in the reverse correlation, so it's more significant during non-food conditions. So then I took those 3 behaviors that I found to be significant, and I ran a regression analysis for those behaviors, and I didn't find any statistical significant relationship between those 3. So after that, I wanted to look into each behavior and see if among the capuchins, are there any statistical significance between the capuchins to see if some maybe exhibit a certain behavior more than the other. And what I found is that Flash exhibited a statistical significant, a greater frequency of conflict behavior in comparison to Elvis. And if you recall, in the hierarchy, Flash is at the top, while Elvis is at the bottom. So this helps support the assumed hierarchy that the trainers are working with to enrich and help these animals. So during research, I've established data for the zoo that did not exist before, especially for this capuchin trip. My data suggests the role of conflict in feeding behavior, and from this, the trainers and the zoo have a better understanding for how the capuchins function as a social group. In a study by Hamilton in 1985, he observed the effect of food and water shortage in a certain primate population, and he found that there was a significant decrease in the primate population, but more specifically in the female group members. And this is relevant to my study because if you remember, Elvis did not exhibit any conflict behavior, so if the trainers know that Elvis is at the bottom, then they'll take that into account when it comes to his diet and making sure that he survives. So then, beyond the study's relevance to primates and other capuchins, I'd like to link this back to translational measures for humans. So as we saw earlier in the results, the frequency for self-reward was significantly greater in non-food conditions. So this indicates that when the capuchins aren't feeding, they are fulfilling their physiological needs through other ways. So in a study about depressed human individuals, these people were giving less self-reward to themselves. And so this article that I found suggests that the capuchins from this troop are happy, they're not depressed because they're fulfilling their physiological needs through other ways when they're not being fed. And this concept also refers to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which argues that there are 5 stages of human needs. And so in the study, the capuchins are fulfilling their physiological needs of food and self-care, as shown in the first stage of these needs. Because the specific primate is not studied as well as others like chimpanzees and baboons, I still think there's a lot of gaps to fill for tons of capuchins. So in the future, for this specific population, I'm really interested in exploring how, after conflict behavior, like how their interactions are, because although it wasn't the focus of my study, I noticed that when I look at their behaviors after conflict behavior, maybe the two, for example, the two same capuchins that would be fighting with each other, they'd be later grooming each other. So I just want to see how that reconciliation works. So then that'd be really interesting to see. And I believe that these types of studies are important and really vital for all animal populations, especially in captive habitats. I recognize this importance upon learning that data such as what I found can help to improve ways of maintaining animal health and ensuring that they're cared for appropriately. Thank you.
I read a similar study in another primate species that did show that the individuals that fought tended to more readily be reconciling later, i.e. grooming. What is your thought what would happen in a captive population? Similar or different?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what the results were?
So in a wild population, there was a study that came out that said after bouts of fights, the primates would be seen later to be reconciling, i.e. grooming each other.
Yeah.
Do you think that would translate directly into a captive population, or what do you?
I can't strongly support my reasoning for this, but I do think it would, because like what I saw from this troop, they would reconcile and like from Anya's presentation earlier was kind of connected with what I'm thinking, because they would forgive each other. I don't know how to explain that exactly, but they would, in a sense, they kind of have to know to work together and live in co-live, because they're in that habitat where they can't really move if they're not getting along with someone. So in a way, they kind of have to get along. And also, this troop, they've kind of grown together. So in a way, they have that kinship affiliation with each other, although they're not related. So there's also that factor. Any other questions?
So according to other articles, how would a social hierarchy be made in troops?
Okay, so what I read in a lot of articles, competition was a major factor for constructing social hierarchies. So more dominant individuals would exhibit this competition, and so basically subordinate individuals, they would be fearful of those, so that's how it starts to construct. And then dominant hierarchies, social hierarchies are able to shift with time, depending on age and other things. So competition is a major one, and food. Competition for food, more specifically. Yes?
And during feeding, was there competition, or so when the feeders feed, do they feed them individually, or do they feed that, they just put the food in there and they?
That's a good question. I didn't really explain this that well in the procedures, but I considered 2 different conditions as food conditions. So there was an enrichment period of time where the capuchins were given food by the trainers, which is what I showed in that video. So they're given food directly, and that only occurred for 30 seconds to a minute. So that I would begin my food condition data collection during that time, and it would continue and overlap with the other condition I considered food condition, which would be basically in that, remember that the plastic container where the food was in the first picture I showed, the trainers would go around the enclosure and kind of just throw the food in. And so in that case, it's more up to the dominant hierarchy to see who gets the food first and how that works. Any other questions? Yes.
Did the dominant female also show more aggressive behaviors than Elvis?
She did, but not significantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank you.